International Master is my favorite title of all time. It's funny because it's the widest range spectrum title. I feel like sometimes you play them and you're like, how are these people not grandmasters? It's very hard to identify their flaw or hole. At least I think so. But then the other half of the time you play them, you're like, how are these guys not FIDE masters? Like, it's so easy to pinpoint weaknesses in their game. But it is my favorite title because some of them have the strength of a GM without the oddities of some of them, I could say. So we're going to get into it. The first one, I don't know what order we're going to go in. Oh, and at the end of the video, stay tuned because I'm going to show a game I had against a 29-20. And then I'm also going to show the game that just brought me back over 2,600. Finished over the tilt sesh. Okay, but we get a modern defense, e4, g6. I do play the monkey's bum variation. That is the only time I bring my queen out early going for checkmate. But the point of it is that it forces them to go e6, right? They cannot go knight f6 because if they go knight f6, you win. You win a piece. So they have to go e6, and people, when they play g6, they do not want to play e6. You don't want to open up two, do not get forked. That's a fork. And then you're just going to launch an attack, castle, queenside, and their d pawn is going to be pinned to their queen. I love this position. It's fun one. I hate stuttering. Just did it a lot right there. But we didn't get any of this. We got knight c6. He was scared to take the pawn, so then I defended the pawn. I develop. He strikes in the center. I slide back, saving the pawn. I like this because it's anti-theory, so it makes it a game. Okay, h4, always launch an attack on the flanks, provokes them to go h5, and now bishop to g5 is a nice pocket for the bishop. It is pinning. Keep in mind, people don't like pins, even IMs. Knight to d2, he goes b6. That is not a good move. I don't know why he would go b6 with, I guess he spent 1 second. Maybe that's a reason. But that just gets hit with knight c4, and then do you see how to put this game away? Bishop takes knight. He can't take with the knight. He loses a rook. Can't take with the queen. He loses a knight. And here he resigned. So that was fair. Almost clicked on the GM 3000 game, or 29-20. Okay, here's another game I had. So this is a pretty balanced position. Of course, I have a knight versus a bishop on an open board. That's what we do. We disprove the principle. But this bishop is on b5. That is a discovered check. Looks pretty scary, but it's not. King to e7, get out of it. He doubles up, but now I offer a rook trade. He goes c4, so it looks like he wants to fix his pawn structure. However, I think what he forgot about was that I have a pocket for my king now. So I blockade his pawns on light squares. Now his light squared bishop is pretty bad, and my knight is very good. So he's like, you know what? I see that. I'm going to take with my rook. So he hung back rank mate. We all do it. Some more than others. Okay, now I guess I'm going to be on the wrong side of this one. Because look at this. This guy has 1 second left. I have 14. I am up a lot of material. Quick math. This bishop is on c3. So he's about to get checkmated. He goes queen g8 check. I was like, okay, free queen. He takes. I'm like, okay, I'm going to take and checkmate him. Keep in mind, he has 0.5 seconds. All I need to do is go rook b3 checkmate. But I got tunnel vision. I was like, ooh, free rook. So I took the rook, and that is a stalemate. So that was pretty heartbreaking. I was like, did I win? And I didn't. So, okay, here's another one. So this time I have a bishop versus a knight, but my pawns are blockaded on dark squares, so my light squared bishop is better. So this is a positive version of the imbalance, in my opinion. He goes rook c6, a great move, but bishop to d7. Looks like I'm going to trade off into a winning rook endgame. I don't know what he was supposed to do. Rook b6 looks like the obvious move. Okay, knight takes d6. That is crazy. Look at that. Bishop takes knight f5 check. There's always a way, apparently. But he didn't find that, thankfully, and now enter a winning rook endgame. So rook f6. I've been reading Dvoretsky's endgame. Cut off the king when you could. And then I just march my king up, take a pawn, and it's a very winning rook endgame. And then the audacity. He tried to go rook g6, catch me in a pre-move or something. I take, and he resigns. So, another fair statement. All right. Look at all these rook and knight versus rook and bishop imbalances. This time I have the knight. but I've blockaded his passed pawn. It is equal material. So how should you look at this position? You should look at this position as this is the nuisance in the position. You are blockading the nuisance, but the nuisance is still there. How do you get rid of it? Well, you need a knight on c4. If you get a knight on c4, you disconnect the rook from the pawn, either tying down the bishop to the pawn, and then you can make progress with your pawn side majority. So knight to f2 is the correct move. Now knight to d3, knight to e5, and you see we could get knight to c4. So see, it wasn't a move. It wasn't like I just went knight f2. It was an idea. It was a route. And then, okay, he pushes, trying to make it complicated, but I have a check. And people like going forward. They say go forward in endgames. However, chess is so position specific. Sometimes you have to go backwards. This time he went forwards, and you see why this is a mistake. Knight b6, and he resigned. So luckily, he respected my conversion skills and resigned. But yeah, that was a cool one. Okay. Last IM game, then GM game, then game that got me over 2,600. You still paying attention? Hopefully. This time, we got a Caro, but then we got a check perk, and then we got a normal perk. So I'm like, okay, I don't have theory against this, so I'm just going to control the center. I really like playing f4 because people don't like dealing with it. So it kind of reminds me of like an Aliekin almost, right? c4. Knight b4, but now bishop to b1. I spent a lot of time on this move, I remember. Okay, 6 seconds. That's a lot of time. So I get these bishops on b1 and c1. They are snipers for the rest of the game. Maybe he'll forget about them. He takes my central pawn, disconnecting my pawns, but that's still a good pawn, and I don't mind that pawn. So I go a3, kicking out his knight. This guy really needs to go back. You know, he just needs to accept the fact that I'm going to have the momentum in the position. But instead he goes wild and he sacrifices, thinking he has something. He wins a second pawn, except do you see why that's a blunder? Queen a4 check. So I pick up the bishop. This guy didn't give me any respect, so he keeps on playing. I go for a trade, may as well. I kick him back now, gain some space, develop my other bishop. Don't hang your queen. Pin the bishop. And did he resign? No. Oh, yeah. Here I went knight e5, but look at this. Bishop takes h7, one of those tactics. I forget what it's called. Oops, he wouldn't go king h6. He'd go here, and yeah, I don't know. Sometimes they get out, so you really need to calculate that. I'm not just going to go out on a whim right there. I'm going to go knight e5. Then I'm going to go queen h3. He has to stop mate. Believe it or not, he played the best move in the position, f5. It's funny that that's the best move in the position, because knight g6, the h-pawn is pinned, the king slides, and now they get forked. So queen, king. Good stuff. Okay, now to the GM. Let me know if you guys know who El Professor Sergio is. But this was a very tense position. I am down on the clock, so we got to make up for lost time. How do we do that? We sack the knight. So we sack the knight. The game is still relatively balanced. I win 2 pawns. I give a check. I fork his pieces. He blocks with the knight, defending his bishop, but that was the whole plan. Bishop takes h3, prying his king away, right? If he goes king g3, I have pawn h4 check. So prying his king away and then winning the knight like this. As you can see, we are catching up on time. I then slide my rook over. That is not hanging a rook because of the pin. Give a check, force the king back. Now rook lift. So I'm getting in. I was pretty happy with this. I only have 30 seconds, but he only has 40. I kick the bishop with h4. And here I take the pawn, and then I go rook g4. So what I had to do was I had to go rook d7 and then rook d2. Kind of just poke and prod at the position. But when you have 27 seconds, you're going to double up on the g file. Or at least I am. Or at least I did. Bishop f3, it's still relatively balanced. Now, this was not a blunder. This was a sacrifice. You see, because bishop takes rook, queen takes, king shifts over, and now bishop f6, not the best. So I have 4 pawns for a rook right now. Had I just taken on b2, things would have been good. 5 pawns for a rook. Have you guys ever seen that imbalance? I will take 5 pawns any day of the week. And if he takes the bishop, you know, then I go h3 check. He takes, I take. It's a balanced game, but I still like my odds. In fact, I really like my odds here. Pawns are hard to stop with less than a minute on the clock. But instead, I go bishop f6, rook to h1. Still a balanced game, but then I throw the game as per usual, as per sometimes. Okay, still kind of balanced, except he misses mate in 4. And here I blunder. Apparently there was nothing there. I just had to go bishop to d4, and this check does nothing. I'm just completely safe. I'm guarding all the right squares. So this was a could have been win against a 29-20, but it's okay. We made it back to 2600. In this position, my opponent took on c4. That is not good because that opens up my bishop, right? I'll take this light squared bishop any day of the week. 91, guarding against g2. Exploit the pin, right? Rook on the open g file. Keep your king in the center of the board. That's what they say. That's what I say. Pawn to g3. Why is that a blunder? Can you find the win here? Queen d5, and he resigns. So, hope you guys enjoyed these games.